This is the third time I have started this video because there's a lot and also there isn't a lot, so I have to redo some of this. But here we go. Here's attempt 3 on this. Welcome back to Just Talks, the part of the show where I come up and I talk. It has been almost... How long has it been since I did that first one? It has been almost 2 years since I put out the why you shouldn't put kids into daycare video. The very first Just Talk I ever did. It's been, I think, about 2 years since I did that video. Or maybe 1.5. I don't know. I'll put up the number if I care to look into it. And in that time, I have, or I'll word it this way. Recently, I have been put in a position to do a whole lot more research on it. And I have decided I wanted to make another video on why I don't think you should put kids into daycares and some of the issues and problems that I have with the daycare system in general. Now, I will be speaking specifically on daycares because that is where I have the most experience and I have more information on. But a lot of my views and my stance on it can and I do apply to public schools in general. A lot of the issues I have with one, I have issues with others. Now, for a little bit of clarification, I have worked in the daycare before. I have worked professionally with children for over 4 years. And very recently, in the last few months, I've been doing a little bit or a lot, but more, that's a real sentence, research on kids and daycares in general. Everything, if you're new to the channel, I'll explain all of this. If you're not new to the channel, if you've been here before, you know very well that I am very passionate about homeschooling, children, families, just all of the above. I am very passionate and I can go on forever talking about the pros and cons of all of them. If you are new to this, I was also homeschooled growing up. My entire growing up years, I was homeschooled. I worked in the daycare. I've been working with kids professionally for over 4 years. And in the last few years, specifically the last couple months, I have done a ton of research and I am still actively doing more research on this. So expect more Just Talks having to do with children, family, and daycares coming up. So we're going to talk about something very specific. Now, in my first daycare video I did touch on this, but in this last week, I was able to get the actual data that I wanted for this specifically. I did touch on this, but in this last week, I was able to get the actual data that I wanted for this specifically. Do I want to go there first or do I want to kind of build up to it? I think maybe I want to build up to it a little bit. A lot of my bigger problems with the daycare is that it goes against a lot of my beliefs, I guess. I am a big believer in if you are a parent or you find yourself a guardian, that it is your responsibility to raise that child, to take care of that child. I'm going to speak specifically to parents. If you made the decision to have a child, to have kids, then it is on you to take care of them and to raise them, not give them to some stranger in a daycare setting or a school setting and have them raise your kids. Yes, you are with your kids in the evenings, on the weekends, holidays, but ultimately the day-to-day life, the routine that your child has is a routine that is not something that you are picking. You are not choosing, you're not in control of, and ultimately you don't know what's happening. The daycare workers are the ones that are choosing all of that. They are the ones that are doing routines. More often than not, a lot of the routines are actually come up with by the guidelines for coming up with a routine for a daycare. A lot of the guidelines are made by the state, the government themselves, come up with the general guidelines, the general rules, and then each daycare, the bosses, the directors in charge of those daycares will put it down into more like hour by hour type of things. You'll get updates on the app on the phone, on the website, however it is. You can see the schedule when you come in and drop your kids off and pick them up. Ultimately, you know the guidelines of what's happening to your kid, but you don't know specifically what is going on in the day-to-day and in the routine of your child. And that is one of the biggest problems with any of this, is that you don't know what is happening behind that door when you walk out. Now, granted, I do believe that most daycares, most daycare workers are trying to do their best. I believe in general, most people are good. I believe most daycare workers are good. I don't think that there is that word. I do not think there are intentional bad things happening to your child, whether physically or emotionally. I'm trying to dodge around the words that might get me in trouble on YouTube here. But I trust you guys to be able to figure out what it is I'm trying to say. I do believe that most of the time that isn't happening specifically, or if it is happening, it is probably very unintentional, especially when it comes to the emotional insert word. But it is happening. And the whole way that daycares are set up, the unintentional emotional problems are very hard to get around in general. They are a big issue in general. Daycares are usually set up going off of, again, guidelines of the state. There is a limit to how many kids can be with a single teacher, and there's a lot of daycares that will do to the limit. They will put the absolute most kids they can with a teacher, with one single adult, one adult, and they will put a bunch of kids with them. There are daycares that will do their best to have 2 or 3 teachers for a ton of kids. More teachers you add, more kids you can have in the classroom and be part of your class. So that's kind of issues in general. Humans are kind of designed and made to have 1, maybe 2 kids, 2 babies at a time. And the way that humans naturally, and by the time you start having like more kids, your other kids are getting older, so they're not taking as much. Well, we can all agree that a infant needs a whole lot more attention than a teenager. You know what I'm saying? And that the attention does change over time. I'm not saying don't pay attention to your older kids. Please do. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that the infants take a little bit more work, I guess, than the older kids do. So by the time you have like your 3rd or your 4th baby, you have older kids that are in a different thing. Most families do not have 4 to 6 to a dozen 2-year-olds in one household doing one thing. Most families do not experience that. It's unnatural. It's unreal. So why we do that to our kids in the daycare, I couldn't tell you. It is very unnatural, and it's very hard on the teachers to be taking care of that many children with just a teacher, maybe a second teacher. Maybe if you're lucky, if staffing isn't being an issue, you have 2 teachers taking care of a dozen 2-year-olds, which is like, that's still a lot. That is a lot that's going on in general in that setting specifically. So whether you know it or not, or whether the teachers are specifically doing it or purposely doing it or not, I can almost guarantee you that your child is either being bullied, aka being hit, bit, pushed around by other kids, or they are being non-intentionally neglected by the teachers, because if the teacher's attention span is split between the kid biting one friend and the other kid climbing on the shelves he's not supposed to get to the windows, at the same time they're supposed to be changing a dozen diapers, your quiet child, your shy child, your child who just is well behaved or whatever have you, does not get noticed by the teacher. And this is something I unfortunately have unintentionally done in the past, where the quiet kid is basically forgotten. they are pushed to the side, not pushed to the side, they're pushed to the side, and we don't really see them or give them attention or notice them because we're busy dealing with all the other children. So that within itself is a little bit of an issue. It is unnatural to have this many children with that few of adults. It's not natural. It's not normal. Something else that I have a bit of an issue with, now I'll get to the statistics. I have some numbers, and we're going to get, I'm a little bit passionate, or not passionate. I'm into psychology a little bit, not like a ton, but human behavior and some psychology stuff really fascinates me. And I occasionally do research on that stuff too. And I want to get into child psychology specifically at the moment because I do find that a lot of the development of children I find very fascinating. But I mentioned this in my first daycare video, but I found it and I wrote down the numbers to kind of showcase something to you. But to do it, we do have to talk a little bit about the human brain. The human brain is made up of a lot of networks that are, my understanding, constantly growing, and especially if you're kids, growing, expanding, connecting. And then if those specific like networks aren't constantly being trained or being strengthened, eventually they do die and they disappear, basically. And that is how your brain learns. That's as a child and into adulthood. I personally am under the belief your brain, even as the adult, is constantly doing this, but I know for sure with children and with learning that it is constantly doing this. That is how your brain operates. That's how it learns. That's the short version, not the full-on nerdy version, but that's the short version of it. So if a kid touches something hot, it connects certain pathways in their brains that now they know that, hey, that big thing in the kitchen is usually hot. Don't touch it because it gave you pain. That is the neural pathways making connection and growing. That's how they learn. That's how they are learning. I'm getting too excited. Calm down. And making constant connections. As you get older, those neural pathways and those connections, they do tend to die off. This is happening before the child is born. The neural pathways are being created and made before they are born. When a baby is born, this is all on average. This isn't like specifics, but this is all average. A baby is born with 25% of their brain developed, 25% of that neural pathways. So by the time they are born, their brain is 25% developed. By the age of 3 years old, their brain is about 80% developed. By the age of 5, their brain is almost complete. It is like a 90 to 95% developed. By the age of 5, we jump from 25 to 80 in a span of 3 years. And then in the span between 3 and 5, so span of 2 years, we jump from 80 to 90, 95, give or take. The 5, 6, 90, 95 within that general. And then depending on who you ask, I'm under the belief that your brain is constant after like that 90% mark. I'm under the belief that your brain is constantly growing, developing, learning new things, dying off some of the your neural pathways. There is a couple beliefs out there that that age limit is 25, that your brain is 100% developed at 25. I personally do not believe that. I think that's your child's brain is growing at such a rapid state. And I find this fascinating. That's why I bring it up. And I went and got the actual numbers and wrote down the actual numbers for this. Your kid's brain is growing at such a rapid speed from the infancy to 3-year-old. And then 3-year-olds their brain is running 3 times not speed, but their brains are running 3 times more than adults' brains are, because they are taking information and learning and building new pathways so quickly that their brain is running 3 times more than yours or my brain is currently at this moment, as I am trying to figure out how to word this in a YouTube video. So think about this for a moment, okay? And then by the age that they're 5, they're almost fully developed. Your 5-year-old is their own person now. I am under the belief that babies have personalities, 1-year-olds have personalities. Everyone is their own person and they have personalities. But by the age that you're 5 or 6, you are very much so you, and you start making a lot of your own decisions. That part of your brain kind of really starts to work, and you stop. 5-year-olds 5 and 6 stop being. I don't know how to word this. Stop being molded or influenced as much as anyone younger than them. They'll still be influenced by anything and everyone they hang out with. Because humans in general are very much so the monkey see, monkey do. Even as adults, we tend to do that. Just in general. But by the age of 5, 6 and older, you start having the ability to think for yourself, to make your own decisions, to develop who you are, and stop being as influenced as you were before at that age. And that happens at 5 or 6. That happens right before kindergarten. So why do I tell you all of this? Well, because... So these are numbers that, hang on, I gotta make sure that's not important. So why am I telling you all of this, and why? Well, one, I'm telling you because I think it's really, really fascinating, and I think it's pretty cool. Again, psychology, I love it. But I'm telling you all of this because this is, when I found out all of this, I found this out when I first started working at the daycare. And I went back and I re-found the information that I got all of this from recently. These numbers and this is okay. In my state, to become a child care worker, to be a daycare worker, you have to be part of a registry. And to do that, you have to take certain classes yearly that have to do with childhood development, how to actually take care of them. There's a lot of first aid and emergency preparation type classes. You have to take all of these type of classes and get certified in a registry type thing, so you're actually able to know what you're doing when you're taking care of kids. Now, you can get hired and you will be working for 6 months before you take those classes, which is another glaring issue, a little bit of behind the scenes. If there's new staff at your daycare, odds are good they haven't taken any of these classes and they have no idea what they're doing, unless they've done this profession before. But anyways, so in these classes that you have to take, they tell you this. They talk to you about the brain development of a child and tell you the 25 at infancy and the 80% at 3-year-old. And for me, this is a glaring red flag. And I can't understand how nobody sees this. Your child's brain is developing so quickly, so fast, at such a high capacity that you're going to take your child and stick them in an institution with so many other kids to do that influencing, to have strangers who are constantly being changed out for other strangers, because it is a job, people leave and get fired, things happen. And you're going to stick them in this institution type place, I almost called it a factory, almost. What is a factory? Place, while their brain is developing so quickly. And you're going to put them in a classroom, but they're going to get older, so they're going to move into other classrooms. They're going to have to practically be divorced from that teacher they have grown attached to, stuck in another room with another parent, another guardian, a teacher every year. And that's lucky. That's if they're lucky and the teacher they currently have doesn't leave or get fired or get moved to another classroom or something. The kid, when their brain is growing so fast and so rapidly, those little neuron pathways are connecting so quickly, and they're constantly having to be faced with divorce and separation. That's a problem. That's an issue. That's such a glaring red flag, and nobody sees it. Nobody talks about it. And it's so frustrating to me that no one talks about this. They get separated from their parents. They get put into these classrooms where the teachers are constantly rotating, which is something I'll get into in a few minutes here, constantly changing out. They're getting moved from classroom to classroom. They can't make an emotional connection to anyone or anything because at a drop of a hat, it's all going to change. Plus being separated from their parents, which is a really big, why are you doing that? At the same time, their brain is going from 25% developed to an 80% developed. How does no one see this? Why does no one talk about this? If we have the scientific evidence to prove the brain is growing so fast and so quickly, and you're literally being written out day by day as you make these pathways, the same time you can't make a humanoid connection to anybody because you're in a daycare setting, because you're in a school setting, this is a problem. This is an issue. Why doesn't anyone see this? Is it just me? Am I crazy? I don't think I'm crazy. I know I'm not crazy. Look up the divorce rate. I have it recently, but I can tell you it's high. I can tell you it's a lot. I can tell you it's because nobody knows how to have a one-on-one personal connection with another human being because they grew up in a daycare, because they went to school, to public schools. Because your brain may not be being developed so quickly and so rapidly in a public school system. But guess what? A lot of the human connection problems are still there. They really are. Because a teacher can leave at the drop of a hat because it's still a job. So if they get called away, they decide they don't want to do this. If they get fired, you get moved to another classroom and moved to another school. You move up a grade, so you get different teachers. You can't connect to anyone. Same goes for your peers. Same goes for the other students in the class. At a drop of a hat, they can move, get kicked out, get sick so you don't even see them for a few weeks, move to a different class, different interest. No one knows how to make a connection. And I can also go with the parents don't know how to connect to the kids because they're not with their kids. They don't hang out with the kids. Do the math on that. If your kid is going to public school or daycare throughout the time that you are working, do the math. If you're working 8 hours, that's 40 hours. That's 40 hours. Maybe more because that doesn't count for a drop off or pickup time. It doesn't account for any of that. That's 40 hours a week that you're not spending with your child. Who knows what you're doing with that? Who knows who that kid is who's sending your car by you? Think about it. Think about what all happens to you in a work shift. Whether you're working 8, 6, 10 hours, a lot happens. A lot can change. Who knows what's going on? And your kid's doing the same thing in the school setting. It really bothers me that people don't see this and it doesn't click in their heads. The brain development, yeah, sure, I can see some people not knowing what that is. It is a very niche thing. I know it because of the classes / being interested in brain development type stuff anyways. So I can get that part, but rest of this, you don't just think about it. You don't know what's happening in that 8 hours, maybe even more. There are a lot of kids that are the open to close kids. They get dropped off the instant the doors open, picked up the instant the doors are closed. You don't know what's going on. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. You can take a guess. You probably know I'd say about 60%. You don't know about the rest of it. You haven't got a clue. You don't know. You could trust the director fully. You can meet with the teachers and trust them fully. But ultimately, you don't know. And again, I believe most of the teachers and directors are good people. I really do. I don't think they're doing it on purpose. A lot of them are doing that sort of thing on purpose. But even if they're not, ultimately, it's still bad for your child. They're still being either neglected or being a bully or being bullied or whatever. They are constantly being exposed to so many colds and bugs. Have you ever dealt with hand, foot, and mouth? You know how quickly that spread, and do you know what setting you have to be in to catch that? If you are not in a daycare, you will never be exposed to hand, foot, mouth unless you know someone who works in a daycare. That disease is only found in daycares. Like chicken pox, you can avoid those. You get those outside of daycares, but you're more likely to get chicken pox if you're at a daycare, or measles. And I don't even want to talk about COVID. That word might get me kicked off here too. But look at it. Look at COVID. Look at the statistics of that hitting schools. I mean, that schools and daycares. Yeah, you want to get sick? Go to a daycare. I can guarantee it. Just it is, because it's not natural to have that many kids who are gross. Everyone knows I love kids dearly, but they are gross, okay? Especially littles. They are putting everything in their mouth. They are licking things. They are learning to spit. They are putting their hands in their mouth. If they're being potty trained, they are exploring the bathroom from top to bottom with their bare hands. And we all know that a kid isn't the greatest at washing their hands or the best at being consistent at washing their hands. They're children. So you put 12 of them, or less or more, doesn't really matter. I mean, at a certain point, it doesn't matter. You start putting all that together in one building, you're going to get sick. So even if their kid isn't being emotionally, insert words here, or physically, they're going to get sick. And you don't know what that kid's eating either. And yes, these are all points that I did in my other daycare video, but I'm going to say them anyways. You don't know what your kid's eating. Birthday parties come around. Everyone has cupcakes and cookies. Yeah, you can specifically ask your teacher, hey, don't give my kid those sweets. I don't like them. I don't want them to have it. Or your kid's allergic, so they can't have them. Always felt bad for those kids because they were never allowed to eat that sort of thing. Not the ones allergic, the ones where the parents said, no, you can't have them. You wouldn't be the only kid in your classroom not allowed to eat the cupcake. Yeah, that's kind of sad to think about. Or, I mean, you work in the younger levels, the 1-year-olds, the 2-year-olds. Yeah, they're eating floor food. It doesn't matter. They're going to eat the food off the floor. And they'll eat their friends, their peers' foods off the table if they get a chance. All you have to do is put them down. They're going to eat it. You don't know what your kid's eating. You don't know what your kid's being exposed to. You don't know what your kid's being taught. You really don't. Every teacher comes from their own background, their own beliefs, their own religion, their own philosophy in life. You don't know what your kid's being exposed to. Think about that for a second. Especially if you're someone of faith. You don't know what faith or belief that kid is having. You ain't got a clue. You don't know what they're being exposed to. Or bad behavior from a teacher. Hey, you want to learn the definition of gossip? Go hang out with a bunch of daycare workers. You will learn the definition of gossip very quickly. And guess what? Most of that taking place in the middle of the classroom where the kids can hear. They may not understand, but they can get a good digest. And they're being exposed to that. While their brain is developing from 25% to 80%, they are constantly every day being exposed to gossip and backbiting. You don't see a red flag here? You don't see a problem here? And this is all just the more mild stuff. That's not me touching on anything that will get me censored on here. As I said, all you have to do is look up one story, find one bad story on a daycare. All it takes is one. I don't care if you only ever find one. I don't care if you only ever witness one. I don't care that there's only the statistics of that happening is so low. It still happens. There is still a child out there exposed to that. And even though they're young, they probably won't consciously remember that sort of thing. They still remember it because their brain is developing so quickly. It is going to affect them. And even if they're not that young and we're in public school, this all applies to public schools. This really does. It doesn't really matter the age. It really doesn't. The kids are being exposed to so many different things that you can't control because you're not with your kid. You're not. You're not raising the kid. The teachers are. And this gets into my second big point. The first big point was the numbers and statistics of the brain development. The next big point is that the teachers are the one that's raising your kids, not you. I don't care if it's a daycare worker or if it's a high school teacher. They're the ones raising your kids, not you. Because they're the ones that's spending the most time with your kids. They're the ones that get to see the highlights. They're the ones that got to see the kids' first steps, first words, got to see them connect and how to actually read. You're not the one that you're not the one that witnessed that because you're not the one hanging out with your child. Because you didn't see the kid have a ball playing on a new playground. You didn't get to see that. You didn't get to even have a chance to share cupcakes with her or him. because you weren't there. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of this, I think there's a small percentage of people who need the daycares. And it's a very small percentage in my book. I think daycares could be a really good resource if you are a single parent really down on your luck. And I mean really down on your luck. And being single out of nowhere and not because, some dumb reason that you're a single parent. I can see a daycare helping those people who just really need it. I mean, your husband died, you're having to work 40 plus hours just to be able to feed your child. Okay, I can see you needing a daycare. The problem is, daycares are expensive. So people who actually need them can't afford them. They can't. They can get financial help with the government to be able to do it, I guess. But even then, I mean, come on. How humiliating is that? And it's still being done by strangers. I think if you're going to have a daycare, I think the daycare should be ran by the church. And if you're going to put your kid in daycare, you should put it into your church's daycare. So you at least kind of know what it is they're being influenced. And at least you know the person because you see them every night, every Bible study or every Sunday service. So at least, there's that. I'm speaking from experience from a lot of this because there's so much of this. I'm not naming anyone. I'm not going to go into specific, but I know so many families that have the kids and then immediately put them in school. And it's like they don't even care. They don't care. And that's like so heartbreaking. And maybe they do care and they still do it. I don't like daycares. I don't like public schools. I have glaring big issues with both of them. If you're going to have a child, then raise the child. If you don't like your first child, don't have a second or a third one, which is a novel concept too, apparently. If you can't take care of one kid, don't have a second or a third one. I mean, I've worn myself out with yelling at you, unfortunately. Daycares are bad for you. Public school's bad for you because you don't have a family connection.